Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir. Mr. Speaker, sir, we actually, in the guarantee motion, we discussed a number of the challenges that are faced by Fiji Airways in respect of its financial outlay, at least in the medium to long-term future, which not only includes, in the short-term future, meeting up with its financial obligations, but also to be able to have the means to be able to pay that on a sustained basis. And of course, as mentioned earlier on, that a lot of it depends as to when international travel will commence, because that's where Fiji Airways makes its revenue from. And Mr. Speaker, sir, Honourable Geringa Tambua mentioned about the travel bubble, and I hope she was not intimating that if the committee did not sit, therefore we shouldn't be part of the travel bubble. Mr. Speaker, sir, the travel bubble has a life of its own. One of the key important issues, to get Fiji Airways up and running, Mr. Speaker, sir, is to give the confidence to members of the public with whom we'll open the travel bubble up with. So if tomorrow the Australian government says, okay, Fiji, you are now part of the travel bubble with us, it does not mean all the Australians will come rushing back to Fiji. In the same way, it does not mean all Fijians who've got a visa to Australia will go rushing off to Australia. In particular, if you don't feel safe about COVID-19. That's the main criteria at the moment that people are using. We've seen, for example, some airlines now try blood tests as you get on. I just saw an article yesterday that Iceland is talking about opening it up to tourists, and that you, on arrival, you do a COVID-19 test, which they will pay for, and that if you are positive, they're still working out about the isolation point of it, the quarantine. Who's going to pay for that? Some countries are now proposing that you do a COVID-19 test prior to boarding the plane and upon arrival at your destination. Spain is now looking at opening up its borders again, but it's concerned because Britain, on the other hand, is saying if you go to Spain and you come back, you have to go into quarantine for 14 days. So these are some of the very complex issues that need to be addressed with the health authorities. And of course it has huge ramifications for the cash flow of the airline. But we have to ensure that the national carrier stays afloat, keeps his nose above water, and is able to swim. Because the moment we have an opportunity, we need to be ready to be able to start bringing people to Fiji and travelling out of Fiji also, Mr. Speaker, sir. One other point, the question is about the financial and operational future. I think I'd like to just delve a little bit on the operational future because I did not talk about this yesterday. As I highlighted, Mr. Speaker, sir, for the key measures that we'll be taking, of course, we need to use our A350s, the A330s, the Boeing 737, which is the older aircraft. But if, God willing, the MAXs come online, then the 737s go away, and the MAXs come online, which has actually about a 15% fuel savings. For us, it's much better aircraft. And secondly, they're very good in short turnaround trips, you know, your Sydneys, your Brisbanes, your Aucklands, and your Christchurch and Wellingtons. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, the way we fly the crew, their training will need to completely change now. Now there's discussions that masks will now be a feature of your uniform. That the actual mask may have your uniform colours. That's what some airlines are already talking. In fact, Fiji Airways is discussing those kinds of issues already. How you check in, when you check in, how long before you fly you check in. Number of the standard operating procedures will all change. The meals you get on the plane will change. You will probably have disposable forks and knives. Go back to that, because you can't have forks and knives that you'll be reusing. All of that will change. So the staff have to be completely retrained. And in fact, this is just simply work in progress. And a lot of it is through international learning and industrial learning. Of course, Mr. Speaker, sir, there may be, depending on how it pans out, depending on what the health authorities decide, IATA, etc., all these organizations involved, Mr. Speaker, sir, will the cabin crew be required to be trained in some sort of health regulations? Will they need to carry out swabs? Will the cabin crew need to do this? All of this is going to change. And you know, you won't necessarily get meals that will be prepared on the spot as, you know, in business class, etc. And again, Mr. Speaker, sir, what we call the defogging of the planes, the complete wipe down of the planes. And as you've seen that apparently the virus hides in all these different crevices in the aircraft. So every time the plane flies, passengers get off, you have to be able to defog it, wipe it all down. And then of course, recently we just saw a couple of days ago about the social distancing on the planes themselves. I think it was there in New Zealand, where somebody wrote an article saying they complained that there are people sitting all right next to each other. So their airline decided, or some other airline it was, that well, they don't have to do it, this is it. Some are actually practicing it. So all of these will change. It have a huge impact in respect of your capacity to earn per seat will change. And as we know, sometimes if you're able to sell 10 more seats in business class, you can make a lot of money. But if you don't sell those last few seats, you actually don't make money. So all of the entire operations of Fiji Airways will change. Safety on Fiji Airways aircraft, they have talked about defogging, talk about the high efficiency particulate arresters, they call them. And of course, in terms of do you need training in respect of, the ventilator equipment or the oxygen mask, etc. People need to be trained in all of that, should somebody get some form of attack. So these are some of the operational challenges, Mr. Speaker, sir, or the new norm. And many people are now talking that we'll never go back to the norm. What was the norm won't be the norm. In fact, there'll be a new norm. And the new norm would be, at least some people are saying, 70% of what the old norm was. And that would become a reality. In the same way, at the moment, in the sector of the employment for pilots, there's now pilots all over the world don't have jobs. In Fiji Airways, we retain all the services of all the pilots. But tomorrow, if this pans out a lot more longer, you might find people going off and doing other things. And your ability to be able to attract pilots, and therefore if there's more supply, less demand, the overall norm for pilot salaries may come down too. So these are hardcore realities as we see it. And of course it's all evolving. No one can say for certain what will be the operational features exactly. And we are hoping in this stage, and I'd like to thank Parliament for having unanimously decided to support the guarantee, that this guarantee will see it financially stable, or at least be able to meet its obligations into next year. And God willing, if we're able to get the bubble up before then, we won't actually need to access all that loan facilities that we actually applied the guarantee for. As we highlighted yesterday that the ADB facility, 50 million US, is the first time they've actually lent in the aviation sector. We're very grateful for that. It's through some negotiations, but we won't actually have to use it because at the end of the day, Fiji Airways will actually have to pay it back. So ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Speaker, sir, that's just a quick response in respect of the question. Thank you.